Good night, sweet prince.
Welcome to the Recap Vault. Today, we're unraveling one of the strangest, funniest, and most quotable cult films ever made, The Big Lebowski, 1998, directed by Joel and Ethan Coen. This isn't your typical mystery, nor a straightforward comedy. It's a surreal detective story that doesn't really solve anything. A film where the plot spirals in absurd circles while the hero just wants to replace his ruined rug. When The Big Lebowski first hit theaters, audiences didn't quite know what to make of it. Critics were divided, box office returns were modest, and the humor seemed too odd, too dry. But over time, it became a legend, the kind of film that built a subculture of fans, festivals, and even a religion dedicated to its philosophy of taking it easy. Because beneath the chaos, the film captures something profound about modern life. How people search for meaning in a world that doesn't seem to have any. The story begins in Los Angeles in the early 90s, narrated by a slow, folksy voice. Like a cowboy stumbling into a world he barely understands. We're introduced to Jeffrey Lebowski, though he prefers to be called the Dude. A laid-back, unemployed slacker whose life revolves around white Russians, bowling, and doing as little as possible. He's the kind of man who doesn't believe in ambition or planning. A person existing outside society's rules. Drifting through life in a bathrobe and sandals, while buying milk for his favorite drink, the Dude returns home only to find two thugs waiting for him. They're looking for a man named Jeffrey Lebowski, a wealthy Pasadena philanthropist, and they're demanding repayment for his wife's debts to a porn producer named Jackie Treehorn. When the Dude insists they've got the wrong guy, one of them urinates on his rug and leaves. That rug, as the Dude will soon explain to everyone he meets, really tied the room together. The rug becomes more than a punchline. It's a metaphor for order in chaos. In a film about a man who doesn't care about anything, it's the one symbol of peace that gets desecrated. The Coens knew it had to start with something that meaningless. Because that's how absurdity works. The Dude's friends at the bowling alley. Walter Sobchak, a volatile Vietnam veteran obsessed with rules, and Donnie, a quiet, naive companion who rarely understands the conversation, encourage him to demand compensation from the real Jeffrey Lebowski, the millionaire whose name he shares. So, the Dude puts on his sunglasses and heads to Pasadena. There, he meets the wealthy Big Lebowski, confined to a wheelchair, surrounded by photos of charity events and fake moral grandeur. When the Dude explains that two men urinated on his rug by mistake, the old man dismisses him as a bum and refuses to pay a cent. Before leaving, the Dude meets Bunny Lebowski, the old man's young, flirtatious trophy wife, a porn star who lounges by the pool and makes suggestive promises she never intends to keep. Amused by the ridiculousness of it all, the Dude decides to steal one of the mansion's rugs as compensation. For a brief moment, life feels restored, but in true Coen brothers fashion, this small act of rebellion sets off a chain of absurd consequences. A few days later, the Dude gets a call from the Big Lebowski's assistant. Bunny, it seems, has been kidnapped. The old man wants the Dude, the man he previously mocked, to deliver a ransom, $1 million in cash. The Dude reluctantly accepts, partly out of sympathy, partly because he's being paid handsomely for his professionalism. But before he can deliver the money, Walter interferes, convinced the whole thing's a scam. Walter decides to switch the briefcase with one filled with his dirty laundry, intending to keep the ransom for themselves. The Dude protests, but Walter's stubborn logic wins out, and the handoff goes predictably wrong. The kidnappers drive off with the empty case. Bunny remains missing. Walter represents the illusion of control. He follows rules, systems, logic, yet everything he touches turns into chaos. The Coens use him to show that obsession with the right thing is just as destructive as apathy. Soon after, the dude's car, with the real briefcase hidden in the trunk, is stolen. Things spiral fast. He's summoned again, this time by the Big Lebowski's daughter, Maud, an avant-garde artist who reveals that the rug the dude stole actually belonged to her late mother. She has it taken back, explaining that Bunny works in pornography and probably faked her own kidnapping to extort money from her husband. She also warns the dude not to give anyone the ransom, since the $1 million supposedly belongs to a charity fund, one her father controls but doesn't actually own. The dude starts realizing the old man might not be a philanthropist at all, but a fraud hiding behind good PR. When he confronts him again, the Big Lebowski blames the dude for everything, accusing him of mishandling the ransom. He even shows him a severed toe sent by the kidnappers as proof of Bunny's death. The dude is horrified, not because he's responsible, but because the entire situation is making less and less sense. He retreats to his apartment to calm down with a bath, only for 3 German-accented nihilists to barge in, demanding the ransom money. They claim to be the real kidnappers. The dude can only blink in disbelief. Everyone in this story wants $1 million that doesn't even exist. After the encounter with the nihilists, the dude's sense of reality starts to unravel. Everywhere he turns, someone new is threatening him over money he doesn't have. The phone rings again. Another summons, this time from Jackie Treehorn, the porn producer whose name started this whole mess. Treehorn, smooth-talking and vaguely sinister, invites the dude to his Malibu mansion. The place oozes with sleaze and power. The kind of place where everyone smiles, but no one means it. Treehorn claims he's just trying to get his money back, but the dude isn't convinced. The conversation turns slippery. Drinks are poured, and when the dude takes a sip of his cocktail, the world starts spinning. He collapses, drugged, and what follows is one of the most iconic dream sequences in film history. He imagines himself in a bowling musical fantasy, dancing, floating, surrounded by neon pins and sequined costumes. The symbols of his lazy paradise turned into surreal spectacle. It's absurd, funny, and unsettling, like his subconscious mocking the very idea of control. The dream sequence embodies the Big Lebowski's worldview. Reality itself is incoherent, stitched together by fragments of pop culture, desire, and confusion. In the Coen universe, meaning isn't found. It's invented, moment by moment. The dude wakes up in a police station, groggy and covered in sand. The Malibu sheriff, annoyed by his rambling story, pelts him with a coffee mug and kicks him out of town. Battered and dazed, the dude stumbles home, only to find Maud waiting for him. She's calm, curious, and completely unbothered by the insanity surrounding them. After a blunt conversation, she seduces him, not out of love, but as part of her own plan. Afterwards, she reveals that her father, the Big Lebowski, isn't actually rich. Her late mother's fortune was placed into a foundation that he only manages. The entire mystery suddenly makes sense. The Big Lebowski, upon learning of Bunny's supposed kidnapping, saw an opportunity. He took $1 million from the foundation, replaced it with an empty briefcase, and gave it to the dude. His plan was simple. When the ransom failed, he'd accuse the dude of theft, framing him for the missing money. But the scheme backfired, because Bunny was never kidnapped in the first place. She had simply gone on a spontaneous trip, while her nihilist friends pretended to be kidnappers to scam money from her husband. The dude rushes to confront the Big Lebowski, dragging Walter along. When they arrive, they find Bunny back at home, sunbathing, perfectly alive. The dude lays out the entire scheme, accusing the old man of embezzlement. But the Big Lebowski, stubborn to the end, denies everything. Walter, infuriated, insists the man is faking his disability, lifts him out of his wheelchair, and drops him onto the floor. The old man collapses in tears. It's the perfect Coen brothers moment. Equal parts comedy and tragedy, absurdity and truth. And as if to prove that fate isn't done with them yet, the Nihilists return one last time. They've set the dude's car on fire and demand every dollar the group has in their pockets. Walter, of course, refuses. A brawl breaks out in the parking lot of the bowling alley. Flailing punches, chaos and shouting. When it's over, the Nihilists are defeated. But their friend Donnie collapses, clutching his chest. The stress has caused a fatal heart attack. The dude and Walter arrange a small funeral, arguing with the funeral director about the cost of the urn. Unable to afford one, they end up placing Donnie's ashes in a cheap Folgers coffee can. On a windswept cliff by the ocean, the dude explodes, furious, but Walter embraces him, apologizing clumsily. They stand there in silence, covered in ashes, exhausted by life. There's nothing left to do but go bowling. And with that, the story of the Big Lebowski ends exactly where it began. Nowhere, but somehow, that's enough. When The Big Lebowski was released in 1998, it wasn't a hit. The Coen brothers had just come off an Oscar win for Fargo, and audiences expected another sharp crime drama. Instead, they got a meandering stoner comedy about mistaken identity, nihilism, and a ruined rug. But as years passed, the film transformed from oddity to icon. Fans began quoting it endlessly. Lines like, "The dude abides," and "that rug really tied the room together," became part of pop culture's DNA. Why? Because The Big Lebowski captures something timeless. The absurdity of trying to find order in a chaotic world. Every character, from Walter to the Big Lebowski to the Nihilists, is obsessed with control, money, or meaning. Only the dude survives unscathed. Not because he's smart, but because he doesn't fight the current. He floats through life, accepting the absurdity rather than resisting it. The dude is the anti-hero of modern existence. He's what happens when enlightenment meets apathy. A man who achieves peace not by conquering life, but by surrendering to it. The Coen brothers use this aimless detective story to dismantle the very idea of a plot. The mystery keeps looping back on itself. Every revelation cancels out another. In the end, nothing changes. No one grows. The rug is gone, Donnie is dead, and bowling continues. It's absurd, but it's honest. That's why The Big Lebowski has become one of the defining cult films of the last 30 years. It birthed dudism. If you enjoyed this recap, subscribe to the Recap Vault, your shortcut to the movies that shaped pop culture.